What is choice? In our society, choices do not limit themselves to the simple act of deciding in between A and B. I've actually conducted an extensive analytical review on this topic, and I'm going to be sharing some of my findings with you today. So, our choices are defining factors of our respective identities. In fact, as consumers, our choices reflect our values, education, and life goals. In the US, a person's ability to make his or her own choices is a symbol of personal independence. The US rests itself on the notion of freedom. In the past, people had to conform to social norms. Today, we try to conquer history by making our own decisions. And this is a primordial reason why people always want to have more options. And this will is only enhanced with social media and a specialized workforce, which promote individuality. The issue with this, however, is that we are terrible at making choices. In fact, traditional economics tells us that people are rational, and so an increased variety of choice should give us the opportunity of having increased options, and so better optional choices. The truth of the matter, actually, though, is that we are terrible at making choices in that we can't make optimal decisions. Take a look at the subprime crisis, for example. Why would you sign a mortgage you knew you couldn't afford? And even when we do make good choices, we don't get that great of a satisfaction from them. Let's take a look at online dating, for instance. So a study showed that women who were presented a wide variety of different men that they could potentially date actually were less satisfied with their dates in the end than women that were presented a smaller pool of male applicants. And these differences in between these two groups of women weren't only in their satisfaction levels, but also in their selection processes. So women with a lot of choice in front of them had a tendency to pay less attention to qualitative information like personality traits and more attention to quantitative information like height, age, etc. And this has to do with the fact that it's much easier to compare 50 numbers than 50 faces. So, how can we become more effective in our decision-making process? Psychologist Barry Schwartz came up with the notion of a magic number 7. So according to his findings, people can only truly assess 5 to 9 different choices at once. Now, if we have less than 5 options, that would mean that the consumer has a decreased sense of freedom in his choices. If we present more than 9 choices, then the consumer has a sense that there's a huge confusion in between the different options. And so the overall decision-making process becomes a burden. Now, this is great to know as a rule of thumb. I'll limit myself to 7 choices. But the truth of the matter is that we won't decide over what cereal to buy in the same way that we're going to decide what career we want to pursue. So how can we apply this knowledge to different situations? Well, in the event of an important decision, like buying a home, people have a real fear of making a naive choice too quickly. So they want to look at a lot of different options before they choose which home they want to buy. Now, the issue with this, as we saw with the online dating study, is that their decisions become very quantitative based, but buying a home is something extremely personal. So I've come up with a decision-making process which I think could help us in these situations. On the one hand, we have to start with eliminating a maximum of our choices. Then we have to go into what is really important for us quantitatively. So, for example, if we're looking at different homes, let's think we want to have a big home. So maybe size would be an important factor. So we have to create different clusters according to these factors, and within each factor, let's put the 7 homes which qualify the highest. Now, once we have these different clusters, we can look at what the qualitative value of each home is. So let's go through a qualitative analysis of each cluster and then rank each home accordingly. Once we have these clusters and these rankings, we'll be able to assess our choices in a much more visual way, and this makes it much easier for us to see what our optimal choice would be. So in the end, let's choose the home which is not only quantitatively best, but also which we feel the best personal link with, so qualitatively. So in the end, I just want to say it's possible to make optimal decisions. But in order to do so, we have to understand what our cognitive biases are, and we have to work to understand how we can overcome them. So this comes with a process of control and patience. And I'm still learning how to make better decisions, but hopefully I'm going to get there, and I'd hope that you join me on my journey. Thank you.